you aren't out within 10 days, you and your family will be killed. Now, in Montgomery, our home was bombed twice. Today, we still confront threats through telephone calls and through the mail.
It's 1964, and a package has just been sent to Martin Luther King Jr.'s house in Atlanta, Georgia. The package contains reels of tape, and on that tape, there's blackmail, as well as this one-page letter. The letter is written in the voice of one of King's supporters. It's riddled with typos and corrections. And the letter tells King that he should, quote, look into his heart, because he is, quote, a complete fraud, a great liability to black people. It refers to the tapes that are in this package, which is an audio supercut of evidence showing King committing adulterous acts, sexual encounters with his girlfriends and mistresses. The letter calls him a, quote, dissolute, abnormal, moral imbecile, abnormal animal, a beast. What incredible evilness. Satan could not do more. The letter tells King that his end is approaching and that he has just one thing left to do. And he knows what it is. He has 34 days in which to do it. This letter, insinuating that Martin Luther King Jr. should end his own life, was not sent by a disenchanted follower, and it was not typical hate mail. This letter was sent by some of the most powerful men in the United States, the top leaders of the FBI.
And of course, I received numerous threatening letters. You and your family will be killed.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
So this is about Martin Luther King, guys, and his history.
More than half of Americans don't buy the official account that a lone racist gunman was behind the death of Martin Luther King on that day in Memphis in the late 1960s. That number is more like 88% for Black Americans. Those who don't believe it include the ones that were standing next to him when it happened. They include his family. An exhaustive congressional investigation found that King's murder was, quote, likely a conspiracy. But there's actually a lot more to the story than who pulled the trigger. And thanks to recently declassified documents, thousands of them that we've been going through, we can now shed a light on the FBI in the 1960s, what they were up to, and what that teaches us about who really killed Martin Luther King. Before we move on, a quick note from our sponsor. Sponsors allow us to do these deep dives where we spend months and months looking at FBI documents. So thank you Incogni for sponsoring today's video. We live in a world that is full of junk mail and spam calls and all kinds of predatory stuff on the internet. This world is made possible by the shadowy industry of data brokers that try to collect all of your information, where you live, what you like to do on the internet, how old you are, and sell that information on an open market. Incogni is your way out of this system. You sign up for Incogni and you give them permission to go out and request on your behalf that you be taken off the data broker list. There are hundreds and hundreds of these lists that our names are on. And with Incogni, you can start the process of getting yourself off these lists. And then Incogni immediately starts sending out a bunch of requests to take me off these lists. And I can see on my dashboard how many requests they've sent out. It blew my mind. It's literally hundreds. And then they keep you updated on all of the progress that my data and browsing history could be. Privacy is interesting to you, then.
While our nation's best are giving their blood.
Bruh, fucking ads, bro. I swear to God, dude.
So, in the late 1960s, here in America, there was a secret war going on between these two men. One of them wielded the immense, opaque power of the United States' Federal Bureau of Investigations. The other man belonged to America's long oppressed minority and fought this war using the weapons of compelling words and a deep philosophical commitment to nonviolent protest.
My feeling is that the vast majority of Negroes in the United States believe in nonviolence as a basic tactic for social change.
Nonviolence. The nonviolence is really the only way that we can follow.
That if every Negro in the United
United States turns against nonviolence, I'm going to stand up as a lone voice and say this is the wrong way.
In 1960s America, nonviolence turned out to be an incredibly powerful tool for waging this struggle, because it always resulted in the same thing, the inevitable crackdown of excessive violence by law enforcement and counter-protesters. And when that was then covered and shown to the general population, it was so starkly clear who was right and who was wrong in the situation.
King felt from a strategy in terms of changing the hearts and minds of America. Watching young boys and girls and teenagers and adults be beaten, posed, shot, murdered, maimed for simply wanting to exercise their rights as citizens. These images were very powerful.
You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
A visual spectacle that represented what Black Americans knew all too well was how they were treated by the American system. But now it was just public. King led 40,000 to protest segregated buses for over a year, resulting in the desegregation of public buses in Montgomery, Alabama. He went to the most segregated city in America to lead sit-ins in segregated restaurants and lunch counters. Protesters would peacefully kneel in churches and libraries. They marched on City Hall. And King would always get up with his powerful, stirring words to remind these protesters about the importance of their core philosophy.
We go back to the buses, let us be loving enough to turn an enemy into a friend. Nonviolent protest against injustices and indignities experienced.
That the idea that you were going to bludgeon your enemies or destroy your enemies into some form of solidarity where it wouldn't just be permanently armed camps, he thought was an illusion. Persistent illusion that we constantly make. That's one of the objections about militarism, that it's based on a fantasy.
King and many of these protesters were arrested. From jail, King wrote a letter about why he was leading these demonstrations in Birmingham. August 1963, letter from Birmingham jail. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. And that now was their time, for they had, quote, waited for more than 340 years for their God-given constitutional rights. This is the only way to change what was the status quo in America, where vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers, hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and brutalize, and even kill your Black brothers and sisters. And after trying many different ways of addressing this, nonviolent direct action would build creative tension in the society. It would dramatize these issues so that they could no longer be ignored. This was his strategy for change and equality for his people, and it was working. Lunch counters, restrooms, and drinking fountains were desegregated across Birmingham. And as King predicted, the spectacle of peaceful protesters being violently cracked down on spread across the country, elevating the movement to an unambiguous moral high ground that couldn't be put down by force and arrests and violence by law enforcement.
Now and will continue to carry on our mass protest.
You could be vaping formaldehyde, which is used in taxidermy.
Oh, dear.
What?
Formaldehyde. Oh, dear.
What?
I knew it. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
What?
Aren't you an elk?
I don't know what I am.
But Martin Luther King was challenging an old, entrenched system. And when you disrupt a system like that, you create enemies.
Either you give the Negro his God-given rights and his freedom, or you face the fact of continual social disruption and social chaos.
His enemies included those that you would imagine, like the Ku Klux Klan, whose leaders allied with local police in the South and who stated that killing MLK would eliminate all racial problems in the South. You also had pro-segregation groups like the White Citizens Council, who tried to convince the federal government that King's growing movement had communist connections. But it wasn't just these overtly bigoted groups. His enemies also included business owners, real estate developers, landlords, employers, all of whom benefited from the status quo. Discrimination in hiring practices, housing, and mortgages. Then, of course, there was a whole bunch of lawmakers and governors, most of them from the South, almost all of them from the South. But among King's enemies was a Department of Justice agency that was powerful, whose job it was to protect Americans and to enforce the laws of the country.
J. Edgar Hoover served as the agency's director. FBI building houses the Bureau's Washington headquarters.
So remember, it's the 1960s, it's the Cold War. There's an obsession with finding communist sympathizers, anyone who is sympathetic to our big enemy, the Soviet Union. And the director of the FBI at the time was named J. Edgar Hoover. He would be the director of the FBI for like decades. So as King's movement grew, Hoover became suspicious that the movement wasn't a grassroots rising up for equality and racial justice, but rather a communist plot to sow division in American society. So it's 1963, Martin Luther King and his followers are planning this massive march in Washington, D.C., and Hoover tasks his head of domestic intelligence, William Sullivan, to go out and investigate how much influence the Communist Party has over this movement. And 5 days before the March on Washington, Sullivan delivers this report. The report concludes that even though the Soviet Union had spent tremendous sums of money and time and issued lots of propaganda to try to infiltrate this movement, that in fact there was, quote, no known substantial implementation of communism within King's movement. The movement was about racial inequality in America, a real pressing issue. Communism had nothing to offer and nothing to do with it, says this report that was delivered to Hoover 5 days before the March on Washington. But you can see right here, Hoover didn't like it. You can see right here at the bottom of the memo, this is Hoover's handwriting in this declassified document. It's kind of an angry moment. Communism's influence on King isn't infinitesimal, as Sullivan's report had concluded. Sullivan says that Hoover was so mad about this that he stopped talking to Sullivan for months. Sullivan had to, quote, change our ways or we would all be out on the streets, give Hoover what he wanted, or risk the consequences. And what Hoover wanted was King to be tied to communism so that he would have an excuse to spy on him.
99% of people, unfortunately, they don't go to their boss and say, you are a horrible affront to human decency. I will quit this job rather than carry out your directive. They go and they do their job. They say, oh yeah, you were right, boss.
And soon, the FBI would give him exactly what he wanted.
They called it the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. In the lead, Martin Luther King.
Today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
Determination that the American society shall have no rest until it is a society of free men, whatever their color.
Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
The power to save lives is within you. Donate plasma and get paid for your time.
Life is more legal than you think, and LegalZoom is here to help. Whether it's registering...
2 days after the March on Washington, the Communist Party does wield substantial influence on him and his moral philosophy to spy on King. But what they don't tell the Attorney General is that they're not actually looking for communism. There is no communism here, and they know that. What they're looking for is whatever they can get to take him off his pedestal. We're already looking at Willard Hotel effective installation. Women, while using Quick, we can't really move his pedestal. I have or not files, though he claims that it. King continues to Oslo, he receives his prize. Suddenly he's Person of the Year on the front of magazines, and he continues to lead a variety of social justice causes.
So, Martin Luther King was known for being very peaceful, and that's what people don't understand, is that his movement was so, it was like probably one of the best movements for black people in the 1960s, because blacks were oppressed in such a way where their human rights were not being protected and upheld. And he tried his best to keep the movement where it was peaceful, meaning people were not attacking. They were just standing up for their rights. As you can see, look at them. And crazy enough, in the 1960s or around that time, this is when he died.
This next big march on Washington was to happen. King was in Memphis, Tennessee, supporting the strike of mostly black trash collectors, protesting the lack of safety standards and their low pay. And that night, Martin Luther King gave his last speech.
We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
That night, he returned to his hotel, staying in a room that he stayed in so often that it was actually named after him. And at 6:01 p.m. on April 4th, 1968, while he was standing out here on this balcony, a single shot rang out, hitting King in the jaw. He was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead an hour later.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, 39 years old and a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and the leader of the nonviolent civil rights movement in the United States, was assassinated in Memphis tonight. A sniper's bullet cut down Dr. King as he stood on a hotel balcony in Memphis. Within an hour, Dr. King was dead. That happened at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The nation was shocked.
Isn't that crazy that they killed him for being peaceful and not being fearful?
From window.
From Lisbon.
We opened up a...
Hey man, what's the best...
when it came to the conspiracy theories surrounding this assassination. We wanted to really confront timelines that don't add up, witnesses that contradict the real story, a lot of things that make it hard to accept that a 40-year-old fugitive could pull off a sophisticated assassination in one shot and escape through 3 countries. But the investigations done since then have concluded that it was Ray who fired the shot. This includes the House Select Committee, a congressional investigation that concluded that Ray did it, though they say it was likely a conspiracy, that there were other people involved, funders, though they say it wasn't the government. The King family continued to sue and search for answers. Then in the 90s, this man comes forward and says that he was a part of it, that he was given money to hire someone to kill King. The King family took him to court under a wrong dollar payment to the King. Feels like
King's life that they did not share with him. We know that they didn't insist on protecting him the way
of one thing: justice given to him by the American people.
So this is a part of history, guys, for anyone who doesn't know history. Martin Luther King Jr. advocated for peaceful protests, for people to act in a way where they were not harming other people. And for that, someone killed him. Can you guys believe that? I cannot believe it. That somebody would go out of their way to kill somebody who is trying to create a peaceful way for rights to exist. Can you guys believe that? It blows my mind. And this is another thing about history, guys, is around the time that Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, Malcolm X also existed. So we're going to watch a video on that, but I wanted to show you guys Martin Luther King Jr. first, because I felt that his approach was very ethnical, right? It shows that he wanted to try to reach a resolution through a peaceful approach, and through that peaceful approach, they still killed him. And there's, like I said, the conspiracy theories, the government did it, or whatever, but still, it just shows that in America we have this issue with oppressive governments, or people who find interest in just not giving people rights. When, if I was there, I would have been analyzing Martin Luther King, like, yo, this guy's, he's the right way, you know what I'm saying? They're being peaceful, give them rights. If they're peaceful, you know what I'm saying? That's like this dude, that would have been like a W in the history, bro, if they let him live. And sadly, they didn't let him live. So that's just another sad reality. And it's also another reason why we should also do some research on Malcolm X and see his approach. I'll make a video that I'll upload soon for you guys to show you guys Malcolm X's approach, which he had a different way, or a different ideology, or a different way of thinking about how to deal with oppressors, or people who don't want to see you having rights. Are you guys ready? All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like for Martin Luther King Jr., who sacrificed his own life so that people could have rights in America.